On today's Locked On Texans podcast, how can the Houston Texans improve their offensive line? That's a conversation that needs to be had. But we kick off today's show looking at, is Kenyon Green, former first round pick, done in Houston?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, Locked On Texans fans, listeners, and viewers to this Thursday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. First and foremost, thank you to all of our first-time listeners and viewers out there. If this is your first time, please hit the subscribe button, like and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. But, of course, thank you to all of our returning listeners lending your ear for another episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. On the other side of the screen, your Texans credentialed media member, Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis. I am your Texans football analyst. Been catching a lot of flack the last couple of days, and of course I love it. But I am John, some sports guy Hickman. Improvements for CJ Stroud. We know that he had one of the greatest rookie campaigns for a quarterback in NFL history, but there's always a way to get better, so we'll talk about that. But this is primarily the offensive line show. We're going to look at how the Texans improve. How can they improve the offensive line here in Houston? We open up today's show looking at, is the 2022 former first round left guard Kenyon Green done in Houston? I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 in your pocket if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. As we talk about Kenyon Green, it's important to remember the situation. Didn't get a full offseason his rookie year, did not get a full offseason his sophomore year, missed the entire year his sophomore year, his rookie year. We talk about CJ Stroud having one of the greatest rookie quarterback years of all time. For Kenyon Green, that 7 to 8 week stretch where he took on the premier defensive tackles in the NFL was probably one of the worst get baptized. Y'all know that podcast? Is it Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson?
Yeah, the Knuckle Podcast.
The Knuckle Podcast.
No, Knucklehead, I think it's called.
The Knucklehead Podcast. And whenever they invite somebody, they ask them a question. What was your welcome to the league moment? Who was your welcome to the league moment? For Kenyon Green, he has moments. And then it all just the biggest moment was the Commanders game. But he had welcome to the league this week, welcome to the league this week, welcome back to the league this week. Oh, you came back again? Welcome back. But as we've seen Houston this past year just maneuver and operate without him. Jared Patterson, Juice Scruggs, Dater, Kendrick Green, who filled in at left guard, Titus Howard, but we'll talk about that in the second segment. As we saw Houston do a very good job of trying to stay afloat without their former first-round pick, the question now begs, the question that begs now is Kenyon Green done in Houston?
And this conversation came about, John, because I think you did a phenomenal job yesterday when we was looking at players who really need to excel in 2024. And that was a guy that was at the top of your list, Kenyon Green, and rightfully so. Unfortunately, when I went back and I listened to that show, the more I thought about it, I really don't know if he's going to have an opportunity to do so. Because first and foremost, you got to keep in mind that D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Sloyd did not draft Kenyon Green. But not only that, I'm also looking at it from a standpoint, I don't know if he's going to get that opportunity because I don't see a situation where he is going to play himself back into the rotation, and I damn sure do not see a situation where he's going to play himself back into a starting role unless he took the entire 2023 season to get his mind right, to get his body right, to get his skills right, and he blows everybody away during training camp. And when I say everybody, I'm talking about the McNairs, because they be out there on training camp. We be out there on training camp. So you're looking at reporters, the coaches, teammates. Everybody needs to be blown away in order for Green to retake his role as this team starting left guard. But on the flip side of that, John, I also look at it from a standpoint. I think the Texans have made several moves, and they have a pair of players where I look at it and say, there's no way in the world Kenyon Green is going to beat them as of right now. First and foremost, you take a look at who finished the 2023 campaign as this team starting left guard, Juice Scruggs. I understand it. I get it. He was drafted to be a center. However, there is an interesting conversation that people are having, and I'm one of those people as well, to say, well, Jared Patterson did a pretty good job at center. Do you keep him at center and keep Juice Scruggs at left guard? I say so, because keep in mind, in the 464 snaps that we saw Jared Patterson, that young man did not allow a sack, only one quarterback hit, and 8 pressures. So I look at it from the standpoint, if you put Kenyon Green back into the starting role and you move Juice Scruggs over to center, then that's going to create a situation where the Houston Texans will be going out there without arguably their 5 best offensive linemen. And if we are looking at the Houston Texans to make this big jump in 2024, they need to make sure that they go out there with the 5 best offensive linemen. And we already know that Laramie Tunsil, Shaq Mason, and Titus Howard is definitely going to make up 3 of those 5. Another issue that I'm looking at, John, the number one thing that excited me, excited you, excited everybody when you look at the potential that Kenyon Green can bring to this team is his run blocking, correct? With that being said, go back and analyze Jared Patterson run blocking, who finished last season with a run blocking grade of 62.9. Juice Scruggs, he struggled just a little bit in the run blocking at the start, but towards the end of the season, especially once Devin Singletary got things going, we saw him get better at run blocking. He finished his rookie season with a run blocking grade, according to Pro Football Focus, 51.8. Kenyon Green, in the games that we saw him in 2022, he finished with a run blocking grade of 47.4. So I look at that from a standpoint and say, man, how in the world can we be excited about this young man's potential as a run blocker? But yet, when you compare him to Patterson and Juice, he's the weakest link out of that. By the way, John, I want you to answer this question. When we look at the interior, outside of Patterson and Juice, I'm gonna throw these offensive linemen to you, and you just ask me who you taking, either this offensive lineman or Kenyon Green. I'm gonna start with Michael Data. Who are you taking? Michael Data?
I am taking, based off potential, Kenyon Green.
Okay, so I give you that one.
Because Data, he filled in at center.
For Jared Patterson.
And I think really for Juice, who we all presume will be the starting center moving forward. But if we talk about moving forward, I'm taking a guy that I still think has an opportunity to compete for that spot. I don't think Data has an opportunity to compete for center. I think that's going to be sold up.
Okay, so, man, I just don't know, man. I think Jared Patterson looked really good at center, man.
Well, you asked me about Data.
Yeah, I know. But when you say Juice Scruggs, you think he have that starting center role, but I really don't know. But we'll probably save that for the next topic. This one is very interesting. Who are you taking? Kendrick Green or Kenyon Green? By the way, with Kendrick Green and the 208 snaps that he played
was not a lot.
Isn't a lot. I believe that was roughly 3, maybe 4 games. This man recorded a pass blocking grade of 70, 1 quarterback hit, and only 4 pressures.
Yeah.
And he was playing at left guard.
Yeah, he did a very good job, actually. I thought he did a good job, all things considered. Let me clarify myself. Juice Scruggs filled in at left guard,
Mm-hmm.
but I think he was drafted to be this team center.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Jerry Patterson, um, the job that he was able to do when he filled in his role. Am I taking Kendrick or Kenyon? It comes down
Mm-hmm.
to the green again. Kendrick was, I mean, do you remember that podcast where Big Ben kind of just
Yeah, he was a
crapped
laughing
on?
stock. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was.
and he was moved out of offensive lineman to fullback to
Mm-hmm.
try to maximize his talents. So I think because it's year 3, and you've heard me say on this show, off camera, on camera, multiple times since we've started to talk sports, how many years do I give a player?
3.
It's always 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you look at Kenyon Green, because of the disadvantages that he's been, going through and that's been served to him, missing a full year. I don't want to say I'm giving him an additional year, but what I will say is I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt going into year 3,
Mm-hmm.
based off of the potential of what Nick Caserio thought. And I think because that's your first round pick. And if he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
pan out, that looks bad on Caserio. So what he's still hoping to get from Kenyon Green. But I think when I look at the question, is Kenyon Green done? What is done? What is considered done? Done is because we're talking a lot about left guard, but done would be when we look at the season at the start of the season. Is he done? Is he gone?
That and that's where I was going to,
Because
because
before I get back to you, I would say done is that. But if Houston solidifies their left guard, who's to say he won't be the backup for Shaq Mason?
but then you switching his position, and I don't think he's played right guard since what, freshman year, if that, at A&M. So
That's
not
I'm not
only
taking
is
into
he trying to find his niche in the league, but now he's going to have to try to learn a whole new position. So, and then that also leads us into our next topic for the next segment. How do the Houston Texans go about improving their offensive line? Because I think we can all agree that they are not going to use their top draft pick. Possibly, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't use none of their draft picks on an offensive lineman. However, due to the injuries that we have seen this team go through, depth is very important. And is Kenyon Green a
Absolutely.
guy? If it gets to that point, do you have faith in him like you did Kendrick Green, Juice Scruggs, Michael D? Like, do you have faith in him to step in and help that offensive line? And once again, we're looking at a team in the Houston Texans. We are expecting them to take a leap into playoff championship contention.
What plays in his favor, in my opinion, are the amount of injuries this team sustained last year. So I think that they have to be cautious in going about it, and that's what you want them to be. I think so, but they have to make sure that they are not just how can I put it, just falling victim to losing out on bodies because they were not prepared. And whether or not he's played right guard in a while, done. We've seen offensive. We just saw Titus Howard, who's played left tackle, excelled at right tackle, played left guard last year. So if you can beat out somebody, if your talent and potential is good enough, beat out somebody, they'll find a way. But I do think he still has an opportunity to compete for the left guard position. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Listen, we all got things that are on our mind that we need to really do a better job of getting off of our chest. Sometimes we all need that opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get to us as people, and it's important to let that out, especially to someone who is unbiased on your life. So today, I want all of us to take a moment, whether you're in the comments, whether you're listening, we're all going to take a moment and kind of get out something that's really bothering us, to say how we really feel about something. You may even be thinking about the same thing this week that you were last week. You never got a chance to get it out. So, for instance, for me, I really need to get out how bad watching Jaylen Brown compete in the NBA All-Star Dunk Contest was, and the All-Star Weekend by itself. The game that I grew up loving is tarnished. The lack of effort bothers me. The lack of showmanship bothers me. The always need an incentive to perform bothers me. In the NBA, outside of maybe the New York Knicks and a couple other teams right now, the NBA is not the best product. I would also go as far as to say that the MLB is a better product than the NBA. That's how I really feel about it. But on a serious note, we all got real things that we need to talk about in real life. And let's get the NBA out of our heads because that's not serious enough. And the best thing about it is therapy can definitely help us. It can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports teams, and it's important to get those things off of our chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suitable to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Thursday installment of Locked On Texans. And man, we're going to continue our conversation talking about the offensive line. I think I'm going to just call this the offensive line show because in the first segment, we opened up talking about Kenyon Green. What is the future outlook for him? But John, the one thing that I'm trying to figure out as of right now is how can the Houston Texans improve their offensive line for this upcoming season? Because as I mentioned in the first segment, I think we can all agree the 3 offensive linemen that's going to be starting, if the season started tomorrow, is going to be Laramie Tunsil, Shaq Mason, and Titus Howard. But what would be best for this organization to improve the O-line? Is it looking at the guys that you already have on the roster, probably reuniting with one guy? I mean, I saw a couple people on Twitter because, look, the one thing that is probably going to happen 9 times out of 10 is the loss of George Fant. And you're looking at a guy who was arguably the second best offensive lineman at that time, the best offensive lineman, the most consistent offensive lineman for this organization. But he wants to start. He plays right tackle. And I saw some people online playing with the idea about bringing him back, letting him play right tackle, then pushing Titus Howard down to left guard. By the way, when you talk about this offensive line, I don't care what they do. I do not want to see Titus Howard playing left guard anymore. But you gave him that extension to be your starting right tackle for the next, I think it's like 3 years or whatever the case might be. He should be your starting right tackle. But John, to that point, do you go out and use one of your later draft picks on an offensive lineman? Do you explore the market and try to bring in a swing tackle, a veteran offensive lineman that can help you if Laramie Tunsil or Titus Howard goes down with an injury? Knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but you also got to consider that there still needs some improvement on the interior. And I still feel like when you look at the offensive line, they still need to find somebody that can help this team run the football as well.
You know, I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't think Houston needs that much help interior the offensive line. I really don't. I'm looking at the O-line right now. We know who the 2 bookends will be, and a part of the problem last year was Titus Howard playing left guard. I mean, as good of a right tackle that he is that bad of a left guard. That may sound harsh.
No, but it's true.
But
it's not his position.
True. It's not his position. And last year was one of those moments where you do one and you kind of take one for the team, right? I'll step in. I'll do what needs to be done. I'll do that. But the fact of the matter is he hurt the team because of that. And it's not his fault, right? Their decision to Titus Howard at left guard to try to balance out that offensive line because Fant was playing so well.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side of that, the left guard position continued to get banged up and injured. They had to make a decision. So it's a combination of taking one for the team, and we need for you to take one for the team. But he was bad. And for Houston, I think in 2023, 24, moving forward, you get Titus back at tackle. That knee for Laramie heals up, right? Shaq Mason is your guard, your right guard. And now we talk a lot about them needing interior help. Kenyon Green can return. Juice Scruggs can return. Jared Patterson can return. Michael Data is going to return. Kenyon Green will return. So that's 5 guys to help out with 2 other roles. And whoever does it, that's why I'm thinking about Kenyon Green done. If you don't make it, we still will need somebody in reserve, and we need for you to be ready. So I don't think the offensive line is going to need that much help. I think the one thing that they need to do is move Titus back to right tackle and put guys in the interior spots at the center position and left guard spots, because those are the only real concerns right now. I mean, I have concerns on who's going to be the backup for Larry Tunsil, considering the injury history. Well, the injuries that bugged him last year, that's a concern. And so when you ask me, do I think Houston should go out there, maybe draft a swing tackle or veteran tackle for backup, I think they should explore all options, of course, because Heck is a free agent, right? Josh Jones. But Josh Jones, I mean,
there's 2 players I don't see coming back.
Yeah, I can see Josh maybe, because they did trade a 5th rounder for him. Remember that? Remember that 5th rounder? But heck no. Heck no. But I don't think the offensive line is as pressing of a need as people are making out to see. I really don't. I think, in my opinion, my humble opinion, moving Titus Howard back will do much more for the line, because you will get guys that are naturally left guards, that will naturally be interior offensive linemen. And from there, that's how you start to balance it out. Because it seemed like when the offensive line may have gotten into a groove, Kenyon Green goes down. Okay, then Jared Patterson goes down. Okay, then Kenyon Green didn't even start the year off, so we can't count him. But then Juice Scruggs steps in and he ends off the year, and then Michael Data goes down. So those guys continue to play, musical chairs because of injuries. You don't have those injuries, you look at a different offensive line. And by the way, that offensive line allowed for Devin Singletary to rush for his career high. And I just want to say this while we're on the subject. Would the running back position for Houston be such of a need for an upgrade if Houston wasn't stubbornly forcing carries to Dameon Pierce in the first 7 weeks of the NFL season? He rushed for 900 yards, 898, right? That's what he did on the season, career high. He misses out on how many yards not getting carries?
I mean, you got a point.
He could have been an 1,100-yard rusher. And if he goes out there and rushes for 1,100 yards, I think Moda is 27. 27. By the season start, he'll be 28. I don't think you look for an upgrade. I don't think the conversation is we need Saquon. I think the conversation would be we need to add to the backfield, which brings me back to my point. Motor, I think, is good enough paired with somebody else that fits what this offense needs, and you can save on that money. I'm not against Saquon, but I am advocating for using money in smarter ways. I mean, Devin Singletary rushed for 900 yards and missed out on 7 weeks of carries.
But I don't want to change the topic here, but I don't want to say he missed out on 7 weeks of carry, because the ideal going into last season
back.
And who was the feature back? Dameon Pierce. And it's unfortunate, not only for him, but for the team and for everybody, that things did not work out for Dameon Pierce for one way or another. Let me just say that, because had things worked out for Dameon Pierce last year, we would not be sitting here talking about Saquon and the possibility of going out and getting a running back with all that other stuff. But going back to the conversation about the offensive line, John, if the season started tomorrow, to fill out the center and left guard position, if I gotta die on this hill, I'm gonna just die on this hill. But Juice Scruggs, left guard, Jared Patterson at center. I think that will make for your 5 best offensive linemen. For me personally, because I look at the Houston Texans making a leap in 2024, I would much rather see them explore the market in free agency, see if you can get a veteran swing tackle, see if you can get somebody, even if it's just for reserve purposes, that can help you out with your interior offensive line, because I think regardless if it's Motor, regardless if it's Saquon Barkley or something changed and you bring in Derrick Henry or whatever the case might be, if you botch up the free agency, you force going back to Dameon Pierce and all that other good stuff. And of course, with CJ back there, the number one thing that the Houston Texans have to make sure when it comes to that offensive line is making sure that you have your 5 best offensive linemen out there, and of most importantly, health. Because I honestly do believe if the Texans never sustained any type of injury or as many injuries to the offensive line, we would be sitting here looking at the Houston Texans offensive line as one of the best units in the league. By the way, through all of this conversation, Scott Quisenberry is a free agent on the open market. The last day, the locker clean out day, last day of the regular season, Scott Quisenberry did tell the media he would like to be back here in the city of Houston, but at this point, I don't really think that's a realistic chance for him.
Where is Justin Britt?
On the other side of Locked On Texans, improvements for CJ Stroud.
Don't go nowhere. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Super easy, super simple. Bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Thursday installment of Locked On Texans. CJ Stroud, man, had arguably, if not the greatest rookie season for a first-year quarterback in the league, John. When you take a look at CJ, and look, I don't want to make it seem like he's a demigod at this point, but when you look at areas where CJ can improve, what comes to your mind? Because for me, when I was analyzing this, I'm like, man, every concern that I had about this young man, whether it was, coming into the league, when we first saw him doing rookie mini camp, training camp, regular season, every time I said, man, I would love to see CJ Stroud improve in this area, he did it. The latest example, remember midway through the season, we started talking about, does he have a problem with holding on to the ball too long? And I think there was a stretch where he was getting sacked on an average of like 2.5 a game. And majority of those sacks was due to him holding on to the ball too long, trying to create something out of nothing. Remember, he gets hurt in that New York Jets game. He comes on the show and say, if there's one improvement we would like to see from CJ for the rest of the season is getting rid of the ball quicker. And next thing you know, I don't know if he heard that podcast or what, but he improved in that area. And it's almost like almost every single thing that you can think of when in terms of CJ on how he can improve, he has done it. So as of right now, February 22nd, 2024, if there's one thing you can say CJ needs to improve on, what would it be? He got the gloves back on.
No, it would be just consistently getting rid of the ball faster, not necessarily holding the ball too long. And to add to that, I was watching the Bucks game, and whenever you're trying to make a play, it was the Bucks game he did this, the Jets game he did this, There was another couple of games, but don't retreat so much trying to keep the play alive, and you look up and you're 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage,
Mm.
and it makes throwing the ball away difficult, more difficult. That makes making a play downfield more difficult. That makes scrambling more difficult because now, uh, 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, you're looking at a situation where 2nd and 8 can potentially be a 3rd and 20, right? And so
Mm.
things like that, I think that's where he can get better. But I think one thing that I want to say that when we look at the improvements for CJ, having guys be able to get open, and that
Mm.
goes to the front office, right? It goes to the players that are already on the roster getting better at their craft, being able to create better separation. The front office, Nick Casario, you cannot sign another Robert Woods. Can't do that. Can't do that. You cannot do that. Signing Robert Woods to play with CJ Stroud last year, and it was very premature. But at that point, from what I was told, they knew who their quarterback was going to be. But having Robert Woods play with CJ Stroud, it's kind of like getting a kid a nice Christmas gift with no batteries
Mm.
on Christmas. What am I going to do with this? The thought of it was nice, but now I got to because black folks don't never get no batteries growing up. So now I got to do stuff with my imagination to make it work. And for CJ, I got to do a lot to get you the ball because you're not able to get open.
Mm.
So Robert Woods was the no batteries last year for an offense that could have been explosive with CJ Stroud, a quarterback.
Mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for me. I would say just sustaining his high level of play on the road. Now, let me clarify my statement by saying that I understand week 3 against Jacksonville, another breakout game against Cincy, and of course the season finale in Indy. CJ Stroud played damn good. However, a lot of the times we'll look back and say, man, CJ didn't play too well right here, or he looked like a rookie quarterback in this particular game. Majority, if not all the time, it came on the road. You take a look at the season opener against Baltimore. If you want to throw that out the window, okay, I'll give you a pass. But after that, he looked kind of shaky against Atlanta in Atlanta, looked kind of shaky against Carolina in Carolina, looked kind of shaky against, which the whole team did, in New York against the New York Jets. And then, of course, you went back to Baltimore and, just looked kind of shaky once again during your first playoff road game. And to understand, the split difference between CJ playing inside of NRG Stadium and away from NRG Stadium. At home, he's 6-2 with an average of 310 passing yards, 17 touchdowns. On the road, he is 3-4 with an average of 231 passing yards with only 6 touchdowns. And when you take a look at that split, that's at least about 79 to about 81, 82 passing yards that he left out there on the field. And if you add those yards to, let's say, a game against Atlanta and a game against Carolina, maybe the Houston Texans come away victorious in those games. So, I mean, to be honest with you, John, that's the only knock I got for CJ as of right now, which is a good thing.
Yeah, right now, and again, to my point, I think they have to do a better job in helping him improve himself. So you cannot have another season with Robert Woods as your.
Oh, you don't like Robert Woods, huh?
I think he's a great guy.
No, he is a great guy. He really
no, I'm
is.
serious. This is nothing. This is not me being vindictive of his character. But Robert Woods wet the bed a lot last year. I mean, it was moments where we were looking. Tank Dell went down, and everybody was like, well, he was going to step up. And it was like, I don't know if we can count on Robert Woods because he ain't been able to get open lately. He like one of them black restaurants. You know how they take off Monday and Tuesday sometimes? Not open. Yeah, he had several not open moments this season.
Goodness.
Thank y'all for listening to the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Take those same 2 thumbs, scroll over, and make sure that you give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Once again, it's Cody COTYDAVIS _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.